Alright, so on this episode itself, we're going to talk about some of the factors that you need to know if you're buying a property to rent out.
Wealth management and
Monthly installment at 1.88%.
how to select the right property to buy.
1 km. 1 km. Yeah, let me check. Alright, so what are some of the key factors that you as a property investor need to understand if you're buying a property for the intention to rent out for you, while at the same time waiting for that capital appreciation to go up? Now, we'll talk a little bit about gross versus net rental yield. Now, a lot of people, they only look at the gross rental yield. Now, gross rental yield, how do we calculate? Basically, for example, if your property is rented out at $3,000 a month, you multiply by the amount of months in the year, which is 12, which is 36,000. Divide that by your purchase price, which is your entry price, you get a gross yield. But beneath that figure, as an investor, if you were to hold that property for the purpose of rental, there's actually some costs that you need to take into consideration. Now, let's have a look at them. Now, of course, this is how you calculate as what we mentioned, 3,000 times 12 divided by purchase price. These are some of the costs that you need to factor in. Now, of course, the cost of acquisition will be your 25% down payment if it's your first property. If your second property itself, then of course you need to take into consideration your ABSD that you have paid. Now, if it's your first property, basically it's 25% down payment, your legal fees, which is usually about $2,000 over dollars, as well as your buyer's stamp duty. That will be your cost of acquisition. But this will be the running cost every year that you will be looking at. So maintenance fee definitely is one factor, because maintenance fee eats into your rental yield. So if your maintenance fee is extremely high, then of course your yield is affected. Property tax that you pay per annum as a property investor, if you rent out, is at 10% of the annual value, which is determined by IRAS yearly. And of course, there's a cost of repairs. I mean, if let's say your tenant calls you or your broker calls you to inform that the tenant says that the water heater is spoiled and stuff like that. So these are some of the things that you need to be prepared as a property investor. You need to set aside a little bit of buffer in terms of funding to manage all this costing itself. And of course, the yearly agency fees that you're paying to your broker to so-called market the property and to look for a tenant or to look for the new tenant itself whenever the tenant changes hands. So some of the key things that you need to understand, right? And of course, the very important thing that we always look out for is the vacancy rate. Now, how do you look at the vacancy rate and what is vacancy rate all about? Now, vacancy rate is the average period that your property might potentially be left blank without a tenant when you change tenants. So let's say your first tenant rented your place for about 2 years, and the tenant is going back home, going back to his country, and you need to search for a new tenant. But even after marketing the place, you find that you have a long vacancy rate. Now, the long vacancy rate eats into your overall rental yield, because you will be the one that have to pay the whole installment for that month that is vacant, right? And instead of your tenant paying so-called the rental to you, which will then cover most part of your installment per month itself. So this is actually a very important factor. So how do we look at this? Now, you can basically look at this from the amount of transactions that in terms of rental that is done in your development itself, vis-a-vis the number of competitive units from other neighbors in the development itself, to determine what is the rough vacancy rate. You can also look at averagely how long is that rental property averagely in the market already. Of course, we have some data that we usually subscribe to that will help our investors to look out for this portion. So this is an important factor. Now, the other factor is, of course, competition by other projects that is near to you. Now, if you have a huge amount of competitive units in terms of other projects that's surrounding your development itself, and let's say all of you are pretty near to the MRT station of a certain locality, that means that tenants will definitely have more choices, and this in turn affects vacancy as well as the pricing. So do keep a lookout for the number of competition that you have surrounding your development that you're going to buy. Now, of course, this is another factor. Grapevine is something, it's an industrial lingo. It's usually what we term it by Is there like a word of mouth from the current tenants in the development itself? No, for example, some developments along River Valley, they're very popular among Japanese expats. Some developments are very popular with Korean expats or expats from the States or Australia. And so the demographics and the Grapevine affects the vacancy rate. It also affects whether the rental pricing is healthy or not in the project itself. The current tenant pool, usually if you want to look at what will be the current commercial cluster in Singapore, you can go to URA, and what will be the future commercial clusters in Singapore now. Of course, this is a very important factor to take into consideration if you buy a property to rent out, because this will be where the tenant pools are. I mean, nowadays, because everybody is so busy, most expats and even ourselves, we love to so-called be near to our workplace to cut short traveling time. So a few key factors like the MRT station and of course accessibility to the work area from home is getting very, very popular itself, which is why like CBD projects, they usually do very well with expats that are also working in the CBD area. This is something that definitely you want to consider. Do look at and do study what are the current tenant pool that is in this existing development, and also in future if you want to exit and you want to sell this property itself, is there so-called a plus point for you to promote your property to the next buyer, because there's already like a future tenants pool due to the URA master plan that is developing that area itself. And of course, does the rental number make sense to you? Is this rental yield something that you're looking at? Does it make so-called financial sense for this property investment? And apart from there, is there potential capital growth for this property investment itself? Think like a tenant. Now, if you are a tenant, you come to work in Singapore with a family, or you come alone, or with your wife, or with your girlfriend, what will you be thinking about before you select a property to rent and stay in that place? Now, when you reverse engineer in this manner, you will likely know what are some of the key factors that tenants will be looking out to rent the property, so that when you purchase that property itself, you'll buy something that is very desirable and easily rentable to your future tenant. And the last thing that we want to talk about will be schools. Now, schools also plays an important part, because schools, if there's international schools around your area, likely you're going to get a lot of tenants pool, because the parents usually might want to rent there, or expat students might want to rent near to the school itself. So this is part of the consideration. Now, if you're talking about good local schools usually will keep the demand of that locality very strong in terms of rental, in terms of sales as well, because a lot of parents, they want to buy near that area within a 1 km distance so that their kids can enter into that school, or parents might want to rent within that area itself in order to qualify for the school as well. So these are some of the factors that will affect you as an investor looking to buy a property for rental. We hope that this episode helps you. See you next round.